What is going on, my dudes and dudettes? Sean here with S&S Serpentarium. I'm just chilling with my little woman python right now. She's looking gorgeous as ever. Really pretty little snake. I absolutely love it to bits. And today me and this little girl are going to talk about where to buy enclosures from, or vivariums or tanks, whatever you want to call them. That's what we're going to chat about today. Before you go running off and buying a tank, guys, make sure you're subscribed. Smash the notifications bell if you are new around here as well. I do daily videos on any topic you want me to cover. This is actually a requested video, so I thought I'd just put it out for you guys to see. Yep, so just getting straight into it, guys. Tanks. Make sure before you buy a tank that it's an appropriate setup. Always use a thermostat. I really can't stress that enough. You need to use your thermostats, guys. And what I mean by a thermostat is a sort of like a temperature gauge thing to actually be able to control the temperature, not just measure it, to be able to control it. That's very important, so your snake is at the right temperature. It doesn't get burnt and it's not too cold either. Really important stuff. So there are a couple of types of enclosures you can get. You can get glass or wooden or plastic. You can get arboreal setups, long setups for terrestrial snakes or burrowing species of snakes. A few different types that you can actually get. It's important to know the type of snake you've actually got then. With that in mind, if you've got to keep the humidity high, it may be worth you getting a plastic setup. If it's an animal that prefers ground space, then you want a long setup rather than a tall one. If you've got something like a carpet python, you need a bit of length and a bit of height as well to go with it. If you've got something like a sand boa or something like that, it needs to keep the humidity nice and low, so you want to go for something with a lot of ventilation. So maybe a glass tank with a nice secure lid, and maybe a screen sort of setup there to keep the airflow nice and good. Or maybe you've got something like a boa constrictor that'll be fantastic in a wooden vivarium or a wooden setup, and that'll be happy in there. And then you want to go for a bit of length and a little bit of height as well for the boa to be happy. There are lots of places to buy vivariums wherever you are in the world. In the UK, I normally use eBay or Facebook to look for people that are selling either second-hand vivs or actually custom-made vivs. There's a really good custom-making vivarium seller in the UK on eBay. I've heard very good things from him. He'll do whatever sort of size you want and he'll deliver straight to your door wherever you are in the country, so that's always brilliant then. Yeah, so it really does depend on what you're looking for with the vivarium. If you're in the US, have a look online, see if you can find anywhere. I know there's a lot of big companies in the US that do custom made enclosures and stuff like that. But if you can't find one of them, or you think maybe I'll struggle to set it up, maybe buy a second-hand enclosure or go straight to your nearest reptile specialist shop and ask them to actually do it for you. But make sure they're knowledgeable on how to set it up properly so that you won't have any trouble in the future. And maybe they'll even recommend the type of vivarium to use. Bearing in mind, guys, I see a lot of people using the wrong setups for the snakes. Even though they're good setups, they're not good for that particular snake, if that makes sense. So I'd never keep a royal python in a glass enclosure because it's going to get stuck shed. This little girl here, she'd be fantastic in a glass enclosure. So it really does depend on what type of snake you actually plan on keeping in the enclosure, as to what particular size you get and what particular type you go for. You're going to have to do your own homework on that one. I can only I can't go through every species of snakes, if that makes sense. If you do need any more advice, just drop a comment and I will get back to you, I promise you, on that one. Yeah, so another thing you want to bear in mind with enclosure size, guys, is go as big as you possibly can. No matter what the species is, just go as big as you can for it. Obviously within reason, yeah. There's no need to put a little baby, you know, sort of shoelace of a corn snake in a 6x2 because it's just going to escape. You know, within reason, you could put an adult corn snake in a 6x2 if you wanted to, and it'd be really happy with that. So always remember, go as big as you can, but it's got to be quite appropriate. Bear in mind as well, guys, you need, the bigger the enclosure, you've actually got to fill it up with more hides and stuff like that. I'd always recommend using a hide, one on the hot end, one on the cool end. Maybe the one on the cool end could actually be a humid hide. That'd be a good idea if you've got a you know, a snake like a rainbow boa, a ball python, anything like that that can sometimes, you know, lack a bit of humidity and want to get you know, go in there when it's shedding and stuff like that. I'd always recommend adding some foliage and extra cover, maybe some branches, not only because it looks nicer for you to look at as a, you know, sort of display setup, but it's, you know, it gives the snake more enrichment for it to climb around and sort of go on a bit of an adventure inside the tank and do all sorts of fun stuff in the actual setup. So I'd always recommend doing that sort of stuff, guys. Big water bowl, depending on what the species is. I wouldn't go too big if it's a dry loving species of snake like this girl, just because it'll bump up that humidity more than what you'd actually want. But if it's something like a boa or a ball python, something that wants, you know, 50% or more humidity, I would recommend a nice big water bowl then, so it can actually fit inside. If you've got something like an anaconda or a semi-aquatic snake, like a garter snake or something like that, I'd probably go even bigger than that. Probably, you know, close to about a third of the tank then wants to be water. So it can go in there, have a little swim round, you know, and it'll be happy as Larry. It can drink from there. Maybe you could even, you know, if it's a garter, you could put fish in there every now and again for it to just eat when it wants. The fish obviously are not going to harm the snake, so don't worry too much about that. But make sure, guys, that you use a fish that isn't high in thiaminase, just because then it'll give it problem in digesting vitamin B12. So just bear that in mind if you're keeping garters. That's about all I can really talk about for this topic, guys. There are lots of different ways to customize your own Viv. Just make sure it's an appropriate size, you've got an appropriate heat source there, the ambient temperature and the cool end isn't too cool or too warm, you want it just right for your snake that you're keeping. If it's too cold, just add a 150 or 50 watt rad, like a radiator, to the middle of the tank then, and set that up on a separate thermostat to an appropriate temperature for, you know, the ambient temp of the Viv. And then that'll bring the cool end up and prevent any respiratory infections from setting in, and that's what you want really. You want your snake to be nice and healthy and happy. As you know, guys, I use mostly rub setups here, like tubs. I think that's fine as long as they are big enough, okay? If you're keeping a lot of snakes, that may be the way to go. I personally like them as well because I find it really easy in my reptile room to maintain the ambient temperature in the rubs, but it depends on the temperature of the room. Temperature of this particular room is quite warm because I've got 2 oil filled radiators in here. I've got all the heat mats and stuff like that. I've got a freezer down here which actually produces a lot of heat at the back, so it's a nice and warm room in here. So the cool end then never drops below, you know, 75. It's normally you know, in that low 80 mark, which is exactly where you want it to be for my particular snakes. So there's a lot of things to bear in mind, guys, when you buy in and setting up a snake tank. Make sure you do it properly, because if you do it properly, you've only got to do it once. It doesn't really matter too much, guys. If you buy in sort of like a snake this size, you can put it straight into its adult closure. As long as it can't escape, it's fine. But I wouldn't, you know, put like something like a baby African house snake in its adult enclosure, because it's going to escape straight away. You could put a baby ball python in its adult closure, but there's not really much need. It probably won't use a lot of the space, and you need to watch that it doesn't go off feed because of stress. If it does go off feed because of stress, just move it down into a smaller tank and it'll be happy enough then, carrying on like nothing happened, and they will forgive you for that. You could try it straight this adult closure, it's not going to hurt, but if it does go off food, just, you know that you need to shrink the enclosure size down, or maybe add some more foliage and coverage and hides, just so it feels that little bit more secure, and it's got the advantage of all the space then, but it doesn't have the disadvantage of not feeling secure. Always buy a lock for whatever vivarium you're using, guys. Snakes are escape artists. They will escape at some point, so just watch out for that. Make sure the vents at the back of the vivarium are nice and secure. They're not going to pop off if the snake hits it. And then you'll be good as gold. Then you'll have a happy snake, a really ideal setup for yourself that you don't have to fuss with too much. And you'll have a successful time in the reptile keeping hobby. So I hope you've really enjoyed this video, guys. If you're new around here, make sure you subscribe, smash that notifications bell. If you made it this far, which obviously you did if you're hearing me right now, make sure you like the video, because you obviously liked the video, right? Comment down below where you live in the world and where you like to buy your setups from. I'd love to hear from you all. Thank you for watching as always, guys, and I will see you in the next video.